If you are attending the live session today, you do qualify for continuing education credit, and I'll be sending out information in an email as to how to request that certificate. And I do apologize, I did not introduce myself because I don't know that I know everyone or that everyone knows me. My name is Jen Park. I'm the Community Engagement and Talent Development Specialist for the Ramapo Catskill Library System. And at this time, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Antoinette King, who will be continuing the learning moments, the teachable moments, and the reflection as we dive deeper into cybersecurity. So Antoinette, it's all you.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here. Again, as Jen mentioned, this is the part 2 of a 2-part series. However, you did not need to necessarily do the part 1. There's no test or anything like that. So I encourage everybody to kind of stay on and enjoy. So a couple of things. I know that everybody likes to keep their camera off. It's really hard for me to read the group, especially when we're talking about some of these in-depth things. So if you could put your camera on, I would really appreciate it. And if you can't, I get it totally. But it's just, I'd like to see people's reactions. If someone looks super confused or unaware, it just makes me pause and then, for clarification. I do want some active participation. If you've been to my sessions in the past, I've tried Kahoots, I've done some poll anywheres. Today is going to be a lot simpler. You don't need to connect any of your technology to anything. So we're going to do some open dialogue. So if you have questions, you can throw them in the chat if I'm in the middle of presenting. And Jen, I'll ask if you could just monitor the chat because I have 2 screens and they're already full. So I don't have the chat open. If there's something really pressing in that particular section, feel free to interrupt me by all means. Otherwise, please stay muted just because sometimes it drowns out the audio. I do encourage you to have fun. I know when you think of cybersecurity, you're not thinking of fun, but I'm going to try to make it as fun and exciting as possible. So I'll give you a brief introduction of myself. If you've seen my other 3 sessions, I apologize. It's the same intro because I'm the same person. But my name is Antoinette King. I live in Bloomingburg. I have been in the security industry for a little over 22 years now. And I started in physical security and transitioned to cybersecurity just a couple of years ago. I started as a technician in physical security back when things used to be analog. So I was able to witness the transformation from things being completely analog to transforming into this convergence between analog systems and network-based systems. And as my career progressed, I also recognized that in operational technology, which is non-IT, non-traditional IT-based systems, we were not doing a great job of securing the endpoint devices. That means that we were creating a bigger threat landscape, a bigger attack surface, if you will, for the bad guys. So I went back to school a couple of years ago in my 40s and got my master's degree in cybersecurity policy and risk analysis, which was a lot harder to do in my 40s than it was in my 20s. But at that point, I started seeing things from a national threat landscape that I couldn't unsee. And that really sparked my passion even more for security and to educate people on how to protect themselves online, because they're, it used to be that countries were wars were fought between nation state armies versus nation state military, right? And now it's really nation state against the individual citizens. And, the very state of how we live in our country is under attack, and it is through these means of social media and other things. So educating everyone on how to protect themselves and how to keep their data safe is really important to me, especially in the K through 12 and library systems environment, because I feel like these environments are some of the most vulnerable environments. And also we work with some of the most vulnerable populations. So getting everybody kind of on that same page is really exciting for me. So thank you so much for the opportunity to present to everyone today. I am married. I've been married for 22 years. I joke, I say happily most of the time, but we're high school sweethearts. So that comes with its ups and downs. We have 2 incredible children. One is in Fordham right now. The other goes to school in Pine Bush. And of course, our 3rd son, Avery, our little fur baby down at the bottom, he's a golden doodle and he is the king of the castle. So today's agenda looks like this. It's going to be a review of the types of digital DNA or the digital footprint that we talked about in the previous session. So if you weren't there, then you will get some of that information. We're going to review the types of data points. Today, I'm going to do something a little bit different than what I've done in the past, and we're going to have a little open discussion dialogue on social sharing. I'd like to get people's feedback. I'd like to also tell an anecdotal story about something that occurred in our family a couple of years ago, and maybe get some conversation around that going. And then at the end, we're going to actually do some practical exercises for setting privacy controls. We only have an hour, so I can't dive deeply into all social media platforms, but I chose Facebook just because it's one of the most common platforms. And I'm hoping that, once we kind of talk about the different ways that we could secure up or shore up that account, that you'll then go into your other accounts and maybe carry some of that back. So what is digital DNA, or what is your digital footprint? Digital DNA is really data points about you that are online. And it's typically consumer data. It's data about the individuals that engage online. I call them digital citizens, right? Or the new term for that is a netizen, N-E-T-I-Z-E-N. Some of that information is created by you, the user. Some is created by others. But collectively, these data points tell a story about you, right? And they can be used to target you online for just in terms of data monetization, but they also can be used to target you online for nefarious actors. And what some people don't realize is that when you take all of this information that it's about us, and it's not just social media, if you look at that little footprint there, right, you see icons of a lot of other things that we engage in. There's Angry Birds on there, right? There's Netflix and some other different types of online accounts. When we think about all of the information that we put out about ourselves, all of a sudden there's this activity-based intelligence that starts getting created about individuals. And although it might seem like it's no big deal, when we think about how organizations monetize on our data, we get targeted for various different ads or whatever. That same information can be used to target for ransomware, can target to make, for digital twins and some other things. So it's really important to take an inventory of how you engage online, and then think about, how you want to limit the amount of information that you're putting out about yourself. Because I'm going to get into a little bit of the data monetization piece, but when you learn how this information is aggregated and then can be used, it's a little unnerving and unsettling. In addition to that, when we think about our digital footprint, we also have to consider from a professional perspective, the information and the ideas that we put online, they're also being seen by others. And they could have a real impact on the ability of you getting a promotion or getting hired at a new location. I know that in the past, I think I shared this story on the last session, but I was in a role where we were hiring, and this was 10 years ago. We had a resume that came in. The woman looked exceptionally qualified. We did a little digging into her social media accounts. The behaviors that were openly available online were less than professional. And so we immediately determined that that wasn't really a great fit for the culture of the organization that we were with. And we never even called her in for an interview, right? So making sure that we're cognizant of the things that we're putting out there in the internet. So I love this. So the next few slides is actually a blown up long infographic, but it didn't sit well on the slide. So I wanted to break them out into, I think there's 3 different sections. And the top section is really like the about us, right? So it's the $1 billion business of the personal data ecosystem. And so I want everyone to start thinking beyond just social media. Everybody thinks, oh, social media is where all of this stuff is garnered. And social media is just a small piece of the information that we're putting out about ourselves online. Our buying habits, public record information, the books that we read, the apps that we're using. The very first the very first program really that started this whole kind of digital exhaust or collect big data, if you will, are those loyalty programs from supermarkets. When you think about the loyalty programs at a Hannaford's, for example, that's where I shop. You put your card in and you get 2% back on all of the Hannaford's products. But really what that is they are getting an idea of what types of products that you purchase, how often you purchase them, when do you go shopping, and so it starts building a story about you as the individual. Your subscriptions, smartphones, obviously, and we'll get into kind of, I have a whole breakdown of a smartphone and all of the different areas where we leak data. But think about activity trackers. I've got my smartwatch and I love to count my steps, but I also have the ability to do other health related tracking on my phone connected to my watch. Well, those apps are not held to the HIPAA standards that doctors are held to. So that information is at risk, right? When we are putting our health information into our activity tracker, our height, our weight, whatever other health informations, women can track their menstrual cycles. It's like all of these things that we feel like it's convenient, but in fact, we are putting a lot of personal and private information out there. And the one that drives me the most crazy is the quizzes and tests that they do on Facebook, and people say, oh, this is my spirit animal, or this is my whatever. You're essentially giving away information about yourself that is then collected by data brokers and utilized for various different means. Does anybody have any questions about this? Because this is kind of, this is where you got to strap in, because it's going to get a little scary. All right, we'll move on to the next thing. So this is the second layer of that long infographic, and everything at the top looks all fun, and now it starts getting a little bit dark and crazy. So we have two parts to this. The top half is the data collection, and the bottom half is the aggregation. So just looking across the top here of data collection, it's contact information, purchases, relationships. This one is a little unnerving because sometimes you don't have control over that information. So for example, there's a particular website that you can go to for free. And Jen, maybe what I'll do is I'll aggregate some of these resources and provide them to you so you can send them out to the attendees afterwards. That's probably the best thing, so that you could see some of these links on how to get your information out of data brokers and all this other stuff. But there are free resources. You can go Google yourself and it'll give you information about where all the addresses you've ever lived, your name, all the names you've ever had and aliases. But the relationships one was scary for me that I saw because it actually was able to connect my brother's ex-wife's father and stepmother as a potential relation to me. That is so far removed, right? But what I found out was that, because I was connected to my brother on Facebook and he was listed as my brother, and then she was listed as his wife, and then they were listed as her dad, it all trickled back. That just goes to show me that these social media accounts are being scraped for as much information as possible. And again, when you think about from a security perspective, I'm a security person. It's a little unnerving to know that if, somebody were angry at me, that they have 2 or 3 lines of people that they could get to, or, whatever. Not that I have any of those kind of enemies, but it is just unnerving to know that these relationships are public information. Your preferences. Facebook really started this whole like and dislike thing. Your preferences creates a story about you, and it is how you're targeted. And when we think about mis and disinformation campaigns, this is a perfect way to learn about somebody's persona, right? Is we give them the ability to like things, and now all of a sudden we understand what their thought processes are. There's even some AI or artificial intelligence algorithms that can even understand tonality and feelings about particular things. So it's really important to make sure that that you are cognizant of what you're liking and disliking. Your browsing history. So we talked a lot in the first session about metadata and information that is on your browsers and how cookies are stored. So making sure that you clear your cookies, or you use a browser that doesn't use cookies, like a DuckDuckGo or Google Incognito. financial information, biometric data, location data. We'll get into a little bit on location data. You know, you put photographs from your vacation online and somebody is able to pinpoint through those photos and the metadata that's on the photo, specifically exactly, you know, where you are, where you're staying. Then we go into some of the shopping habits in your Apple, you know, ID and that kind of stuff. And all of that information through their data privacy forms that they have and notifications, they're basically saying, oh, we're going to share with affiliate companies. Who are these affiliate companies? Well, these are the data aggregators, right? The affiliate companies gather information about you and then sell it. And they sell it to people who want to target and advertise towards you. But when this information is gathered about you, if there's a data breach of any of these organizations, now the bad actors also have that information about you. So having all of this aggregated data about each individual citizen is quite a large risk. And here's where it gets really interesting. So these are just two of the many data brokers that are out there that collect information about us. But so this is kind of what they know. They have the basic information, how old you are, your college degrees, but then it kind of gets into some real serious information, your political affiliations, your religious affiliations, your ethnicity, your home information, some of your medical information. And so as you can see, as we go further and further down the line, this stuff becomes really interesting. And, you know, dealing with the political climate that we're in today, it could make you a target if somebody believes something different than you believe. Does anybody have any questions about this? This is a big one.
I have a question about their Personix cluster, apple pie families. Is that like a thing you're actually clustered?
Yeah, so basically what we have is through the data privacy, if you will, through the data privacy policies in various different applications that we use, like depending on what kind of smartphone you use or not, this information can be shared. I'll give you an example. I have an iPhone now, but prior to having an iPhone, I had a Samsung Galaxy a year and a half ago. They had a data privacy update, and I went on my phone and it was a big white screen and it said data privacy policy has been updated. Click here to accept. So I didn't want to accept it. I wanted to read it in tiny, tiny little text at the bottom. It was like, click here to read it. So I clicked there to read it. And there was this huge affiliates program that was included in the privacy policy. If I did not accept, I could not use my phone. There was no option to opt out. It was, this is our updated policy, click OK to accept. So what ends up happening is that you'll get aggregated data from all the apps. And we're going to get into that in a couple of slides from now, but the aggregated data from your app usage is sent away. iPhone has gotten much better. There are very specific settings that you can go into your iPhone. And unfortunately, we don't have the time to do that in a 1 hour session. We could take 1 hour just on iPhone and 1 hour just on Galaxy or Android phones. But iPhone has in its latest iteration created a lot of control over your own personal data within the applications. But if you install apps and you click OK to allowing them to have access to your contacts, allowing them to have access to your camera, allowing them to have access to your microphone, allowing them to have access to your, whatever other things on your phone, it creates this cluster of data and it gets sold. So these are some of the key data points that we want to make sure that we covet and protect. Unfortunately, in a lot of cases, almost all of this information has already been breached somewhere, somehow. And there are websites that you can go to that you can look to see if you've been a victim of data breach. And I'll put that in the follow-up information for Jen to disseminate throughout the group. Obviously, first name, last name, date of birth, home address. It's out there for most of us. Actually, all of my home addresses from when I was probably 7 years old to today are listed online. And I've been taking a lot of very painful steps to try to get that information taken down. It is a lot of work to go back and get your information removed from these data brokers. And in some cases, they'll make you wait 30 to 90 days to get it taken down. Social security numbers, obviously, your usernames. So I have a real major problem with companies that are requiring you to use your email address as a username for the two-part credential for logging into things, because email addresses nowadays are public information. And when they're used as a credential, that means that 50% of the credential is already compromised. So that's why we'll talk later, but it's so, so important to implement multi-factor authentication on any application that offers it to you. It does take an extra step in order to use it, but without that, if your password is compromised, your email address is already known. So that's really important to recognize. In our last session, we talked about personal versus private information, right? And so private information, I just wanted to review, is unique to you as the individual. Personal information are the things that build the story around you. They're the things that make you who you are, you know? And so they're not necessarily unique to you. They're things you may share with other people, but it kind of categorizes you and it builds this story about you. So, although everybody is fully aware that the private things should remain private in most cases, sometimes we don't think about the personal things. And I'll give you a really great example. I'm working with an organization right now that's trying to help law enforcement and military people reduce their digital footprint and digital exhaust. And what we're finding is it's not necessarily the agents or the veterans that are the ones that are putting the information out there. It's family members. So we've got, you know, moms putting up videos of their husband in uniform, going to the school where their kids are with the school name in the background, surprising the kid that dad's home from, you know, being deployed. All of that information is now on Facebook, which means that the kid's school is out there. They know that he's a veteran. People might have issues with that and against war and whatever. And now all of a sudden the kid could become a target. And so when we're social creatures and we love the idea of sharing. And that's why our next session is going to be a little bit about having conversation and social sharing. But we don't necessarily think through the long-term effects that could have. So I wanted to pause here and open the dialogue up to everyone to have conversation about social sharing. And I wanted to start with this personal story. I don't remember, I apologize if I told this story at the last session, but I'm going to repeat myself because it's worth repeating. My oldest son, when he was little, he loved Einstein. That was his idol. My son had some learning disabilities and Einstein was dyslexic. And so he could identify with his creativity and the fact that he didn't do well in school, but he also excelled. And so he was probably 8 or 9 years old. He was Einstein for Halloween that year. So he was dressed in his costume. And he wore that costume from Halloween to Christmas. And his birthday's in November. So he was wearing his Einstein costume. And for his birthday, we had gotten him one of those Tesla balls. If you're not familiar, it's the ball you stick your fingers on and the electricity kind of follows your fingers. It's pretty cool. And he also had a Darth Vader battery operated alarm clock. So he's sitting at his desk and he's playing with the Tesla ball and he accidentally bumps into his alarm clock and the alarm clock goes off. And so what he realized was the Tesla ball actually created a conduction and made the alarm clock go off. He was so excited. He comes running down with both of the things. He wants to show it to me. So I videotape it because I was really excited that he made this discovery. And I put it on YouTube because I live on, up in Bloomingburg and my in-laws live on Long Island and I wanted to share that with them. So I posted it to YouTube. I sent them the link. And again, he's going to be 19. So this was about 10 years ago. I wasn't aware of creating private YouTube channels and everybody loved it, had 30 views, no big deal. Fast forward to middle school. And somehow one of my son's friends stumbled upon the video of Tyler with his tiny little squeaky voice at 8 years old, doing this experiment online. Then it started circulating through the friend group. Then one of the teachers, they did online announcement. They did like a video announcements every morning. He posted it to the video announcements. He comes home from school. He's like, Mom, you've got to take that video down. I can't believe it. Everybody's got access to it, whatever. I was mortified. I was devastated for him. He was so embarrassed. Thankfully, he's got a really thick skin, but it was at that moment where I realized, oh my gosh, like this could have been really bad in terms of like a cyberbullying incident. And so I took the video down. Unfortunately, prior to me taking the video down, one of his friends downloaded the video from YouTube and now still to this day tortures him with it. And so we laugh about it. We think it's funny, but if my son was suffering from feeling marginalized or hypersensitive, like I'm super sensitive. If that happened to me, I'd be in the fetal position, crying. So the idea that it was out there on him, it could have been a lot worse. And so as parents, we're always looking to share about our kids. And when we're in school environments, we want to share the things that are going on and exciting events. But we also have to consider that children and our friends, if we don't ask their permission, we're putting information out there about them that maybe they don't want to have out there. So I'm curious to hear from the group what your opinions are on, what the state of social sharing is and social media and how it could potentially affect, you guys in your library systems, or if you have any stories that have happened.
Hello.
Hi.
Hey, Antoinette. Yeah, my name is Bernard Marone. I wanted to share something that I always remember is that I worked for a DoD contractor at one point, and we actually had to go in and take some training, and part of the training was addressed something like this too, and they gave real world examples where, like you said, somebody's relative posted or friends posted stuff on Facebook, and then when that person, contractor or employee is traveling, somebody, a bad actor basically, or a spy of some kind, can meet up with you in a bar and say, "Oh yeah, I'm friends with such and such, your uncle, your cousin, or something like that," and you're in the middle of something where you don't have a chance to, so A, like don't put the information out there, and B, don't assume that anybody you meet that you didn't expect is actually telling you the truth. And then likewise too, I also know about instances where people were not hired because really they had like health issues of some kind that were blatantly posted on Facebook. And it wasn't the only reason to rule somebody out, but by the same token, it weighed in on, whether they wanted somebody who would have a disability basically for the job that they were applying for. So those are two examples of, things to watch out for.
Yeah. And when we think about, thank you so much for sharing that. And you're absolutely right. And that's actually like a grooming technique, right? And so we think about young people, and this is why I'm so passionate about teaching, especially in environments where people have contact with kids or to kids directly, is we have an entire generation of young people who have been bred into this notion that it's okay to share every single aspect of your daily life to the public. And as a matter of fact, not only is it okay to share, but they're expecting the feedback from the perfect strangers to feel good about themselves. And so this idea of the grooming, what you just said, is very, very scary to me, because young people fall prey to this all the time. They have personas, and then, a bad actor will go after one individual. They'll go into their friend group and exactly what you just said. Oh yeah, I'm friends with so-and-so. And then that's how they connect with the kid. They make them believe that they're talking to another 13 or 14-year-old, and kids are victimized. So it happens to adults as well, on dating sites and Facebook and all of this. So I think it's really an important topic to talk about, because we've all done it. I've done it. And even recently, my son is in the Air Force ROTC, and I was so proud to see him in his uniform for the first time. And I did post it on Facebook in my because I have a lockdown Facebook account, but my son kind of brought to my attention, Mom, when I'm in uniform, like that's not something that I want put out on social media. And it didn't occur to, and I'm in this and I preach it and I did it, right? Because it's just a natural thing to want to share when you're proud of your family member of something that they did. So it's something we've constantly got to think about. And especially when we have friends and family members that do jobs that put them at risk, for sure. For sure. Does anybody else have anything opinions to weigh in on or thoughts about this?
Yeah, hi, my name is Dale. So
Yeah.
one of the things that's really interesting, and I come completely unglued over this, is like sometimes we'll have events at the library from the children's group, and they'll post something on Facebook. And I just come completely unglued because I'm like, children's faces shouldn't be seen on Facebook from the library, right? So that's where you have bad actors in the community that you don't even know, right? And so that I'm always a little bit fearful of. And the other one, particularly with children, and like you mentioned, your son's a great example, something that someone sees today and copies down, you know, particularly if we're responsible for posting it, shows up maybe when they're trying to apply for college, maybe
Yes.
shows up someplace, you know, when they're trying to get a job or something like that, that could be just, you know, that could not benefit them, let's say.
100%. So I'm glad that you brought that up. I'm a trustee for the Mamakating Library as well. And that's, it's something that we talk about a lot in terms of, you know, when you think about policies and procedures that we create in the library environment. Does anybody on the call right now have a particular policy about posting to social media when it comes to events and things like that?
So we are working on that. I mean, we have a light one. We're working on it, you know, to kind of, you know, to update it. And I think that's something important because the mentality, I think before it came along was, oh, it's okay to post. I was like, well, no. And then it's like, well, as long as we have a parent sign a waiver or, you know, the form that says it's okay to take their photo, for me, that's still not acceptable, right? So that's just my own personal opinion. You know, as we kind of work through these types of, you know, policies. And, you know, I think the other thing that people have to be aware of is, even though we talk about Facebook, we have to understand that metaverse is a blend of Facebook and Instagram and WhatsApp and all these things. So all you need is one of those platforms to reach all the other platforms that are within that metaverse, right? So that's just my 2 cents. Sorry.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, you're so right. So recently, I have an Instagram account. I have a professional Instagram account that's linked to my professional Facebook account. But just this week, all of a sudden on the app, my personal LinkedIn account is showing up as a separate Facebook page. It has no content, but it's the same handle. I don't use my name on Instagram. It's the same exact handle in a drop down. I did not create that. It has automatically been linked for me. And I don't have it linked in the app on Instagram. And you're absolutely correct. Like, those platforms are, for all intents and purposes, one platform. I think it's something to consider. And for all of the libraries, and especially in any environment where children are involved. I find it very difficult. I speak to houses of worship as well as schools and libraries. And I speak to these particular organizations because, in my opinion, they're the most vulnerable. It's very difficult when your culture is to be open, right? You have a welcoming culture. You want people to be in, and still try to find the balance with security. So with libraries in particular, it's very difficult to get volunteers to volunteer. It's difficult to get people to come to the programs. So we want to publish it. We want to make it known that we're doing this great service and great work to the community. But at the same time, we have to find a way to find that balance, as you said, Dale, between making the programs known and also protecting the very people that are coming to those programs.
Yeah. And, you know, and on the flip side of that, when we talk about social media, even though I was just talking about children, it's even worse on the senior side because they have no concept of privacy or what to click. And, you know, they're prone to scams left and right, like there is no tomorrow.
Yes.
And it's, you know, so their information is just out there waiting, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So.
Absolutely. And I'll tell one more story and then we'll move on. But I went to the bank when I first started my company 2 years ago to create a bank account. I was telling the banker what type of business I have because they have to write that information down. And she said, "Oh, I wish I would have known you a week ago." And I said, "Why?" And she said, "Well, 3 weeks ago, we had an elderly woman come in and ask us to transfer $50,000 to someone overseas because they fell in love. And it turns out the backstory was that she lost her husband This person must have seen it on an obituary, groomed her on social media for about 6 months, convinced her that he was going to come to live in the United States with her. She transferred $50,000 to some random account. A week later, the week before I came in to open my account, she came back hysterically crying. The guy obviously ghosted her. And that was the money that she had gotten from her husband's life insurance policy. So this poor woman, again, like you said, Dale, spot on, fell prey because it was public information. The obituary was out there, and bad actors are looking for this stuff. You know, somebody falls tragedy to something, you're in your most vulnerable state. And so very, very good point, spot on. This is always fun. Are you familiar with these platforms? So I can tell you definitively that there are 2 on here that are newer to me, Discord and Twitch. The reason why they're newer to me is because they are gaming platforms. If you're not familiar with Discord and Twitch and you have children, you should become familiar with these platforms. They are very, very dangerous for young people because they are 2 of the most anonymous platforms that I have ever been involved with. Discord in particular. So both of them, if you're not familiar, they are platforms that people go on to watch other people play video games. Discord is now being used also for other things. It's not just video games. It's being used as almost like a common meeting place. There are servers in Discord, and then you can join a server. Then the anonymization of it is quite wild, actually, because I can have a different alias for every server that I'm on. So that's also unnerving to me. I was actually asked to use Discord to do a presentation for a college. The college class used Discord as their meeting space, but for young people in particular, this could be a super dangerous and dark place that they get involved in, and most parents have no idea that they're even using it. And Twitch is very similar. If anybody has any other information or deeper understanding or knowledge of them, by all means chime in.
Twitch is used in the a lot in some of the media, the music area around. So they're huge on sharing events that way. The other thing is, what about a platform like Clubhouse?
Oh, I didn't even think to put that on there. I get people constantly trying to get me to come to. I don't have time for it. But so this is the problem, right? Like this is perfect. So here's the deal. We've got these relatively well-known platforms, and then there are others that are not as well known, but we've got young people participating in these platforms. And so and it can be a really, really dangerous place, right? I think that the library is, in my opinion, the source of knowledge. It's literally the place that you can go to learn about anything. And I really hope that by just being exposed to some of this stuff, that some of you can go back to your libraries and say, hey, we need to create a program to help to educate young people, help educate ourselves about these things, and then be available to young people as a resource or mentors to navigate all of these things, because we're giving them access to world knowledge in a device in their hands, right? And we're not giving them any insight or resources to protect themselves. So I just wanted to throw it out there. If you're not familiar with all of these, then just be aware that there are a lot of different ways that people can connect online. So here's going to be the fun part. We've got about 20 minutes left, and I wanted to pick a few things that were actionable that we can do to help clean up our digital footprint. So the first thing I wanted to give you, and oh shoot, I wanted to be able to put these in the chat. Let me see if I can do this. All right, so I'm going to put these in chat for you. And let's see, I'll do this one. These are really great. I hope I can get to the chat. These are, oh, yep, there it is. These are really great websites that you can go to. We'll just start with this one. When you click on that, it will bring you to a site that will give you the option to opt out of online behavioral advertising services. So essentially it is linked to your browser and your email address. So if you use a different browser than the one that you're using this on, then you have to do it in all of your browsers. But I think that, you know, this is a good step to take. These three different, it's network advertising one. These three different sites are a really good place to start to begin untangling some of the information that's out there. What's really interesting on these, though, just a forewarning, is that often let's say there's 85 different sites that your information is found on. And by the way, if you have multiple email addresses, you have to do it for one request for every email address, because you can only put one address at a time. But if there's 85 different places that your information is found and it runs the opt-out tool, sometimes it'll come back and say it failed to do 20 or 14 or 18 or 16 of those. So there are things that are now being put in place to block the opt-out through this automated service, but I just thought it was a good opportunity for you to run that and kind of see how that works and how to get your information out. Okay, mobile device practices. We do most of our day-to-day engagement online on mobile devices. So I wanted to talk about some of the ways in which we need to consider utilizing or not utilizing our devices. Bluetooth is a tough one. When we have Bluetooth running all the time, it is essentially broadcasting. Same thing with when we have Wi-Fi running all the time. It's essentially broadcasting out at all times. If your device is open to connecting with other devices, someone could nefariously connect, even though Bluetooth is in close proximity, someone could in fact connect through your device and exploit through Bluetooth or Wi-Fi, even if you know, you're not technically connected to them, because you're constantly broadcasting, so information can be shared. If you are not home and you go out, you should not only turn off Wi-Fi, but you should disable Wi-Fi on your phone. Turning off the Wi-Fi does not disable it. So even if you turn it off, it could still be trying to receive information and connect. So making sure you turn it off in the settings when you're not home. Please, 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 please do not use public Wi-Fi without at least a VPN. In the last session, I did give some tips and tricks of things that you could do. And if you haven't seen that one, at the very end of it, there's a list of things you can do. Password Vault is one of them. VPN is the other. Very inexpensive tools. iPhones have VPNs built into them, so you could just make sure that that's turned on, but do not connect to Wi-Fi unless you have a VPN connected. Software updates, so important. Even though it feels like every time you update your phone, it breaks something, most of the time when you get a software update on your device, it is specifically because they're fixing bugs and patches, and it has patches. So if you do not keep your device up to date, there will be known vulnerabilities in your operating system. And this goes the same exact thing for your computer. If you do not do computer updates regularly, there are known vulnerabilities that are sent out into the wild. They're called CVE, critical vulnerability exploits, that are made known, which means that bad actors know the list of CVEs. They can tell through your browser and other means what kind of operating system you have. And if yours is not up to date, they will take one of those known vulnerabilities and try to exploit your system. We just recently in the RCLS environment had a business email compromise. I don't know how many of you might have received the email, but I received it yesterday. My first instinct was to send it to John Hawley, because I didn't request the information that this person had sent to me in an attachment, but the email it was very sophisticated because it looked very real. And I know at least one person did open the attachment. And so it's just, you know, there are so many points of vulnerabilities and attack vectors that can be used against us. And when we do business on our mobile devices, this is just another way that somebody can gain access to our information. Of course, please lock your device with a complicated PIN, not your birthday. Turn off location services for every app unless it's your GPS, in which case only allow location services to be used when the GPS is running. And restart your device every single night. This is so important. When you close on like an iPhone, you just hit the back, there's no back button, but you just click off the screen. Your apps are still running in the background. It's some means for someone to gain access to your device. So if you restart your phone every night as a practice, then you are making sure that all of your applications are closed at the end of every day. So just a quick tip. David had a question. What are some specific threats using public Wi-Fi without a VPN? Seems like a lot to ask. Okay, I'll give you a great example. When I was in school, for my master's, I had a lab, and the lab was to go to a Starbucks or a Panera or some sort of place that people go to for public Wi-Fi, open up Wireshark and just start. So Wireshark is a free application that I see Dale giggling. Dale, you and I are best friends now, just so you know. So it is an application where it's for free. It just sniffs packets online, right? It just sniffs the traffic. So any unsecured or clear text data will get captured and saved. And then our job was, after we did that for about 35, 40 minutes, we come back to our labs and we process that data through another free tool, and we're able to actually see what people are doing online. And if I tell you how many people were logging into bank accounts, they were logging into business accounts, I can see in plain text their credentials and then be able to use that later down the road. So the idea that public Wi-Fi is insecure means that whatever you do on that Wi-Fi, that is not, so the VPN, of virtual private network, creates a secure tunnel of communication between you and whatever you're communicating with. So it's encrypted, which means that people can't just scrape the information. So in the library, somebody could come into your library, sit in the corner, make it look like they're doing work, and be sniffing the traffic on your public library network. Yes. Yeah. Yeah, because when they're entering the information into the site, as the traffic is going through, you just start seeing things popping up. So just, you know, I know it's a big ask. If you're going to have public Wi-Fi at the library, that you be cognizant of who's hanging out for long periods of time, sitting around kind of with their laptops open. You don't even, the worst part is you don't even need a laptop to do the packet sniffing. There are small devices you can put in your pocket.
They also, it's easy to fake a Wi-Fi SSID.
SSID, absolutely.
Yeah. So if you're in Starbucks, or even, I think the funniest thing was when I got Time Warner internet, and they provide the cable Wi-Fi hotspots. Anywhere you see cable Wi-Fi, you can connect with your user ID and password, which is the user ID and password you use for your accounts.
Yes.
On Time Warner at the time, you know. And so why do they think that's a safe thing? Like, anybody can fake that user ID in an area, particularly in an area where they don't, where Spectrum isn't providing service, you know. So
yeah, and you can create your SSID to be anything. You know, I have friends that make the wildest things for their SSIDs just because, but yeah, you can take 100%. That's, you know, you're spoofing. You can also spoof websites. And again, we could talk for hours and hours and hours on all of this stuff. And going down the rabbit hole is one of my favorite things to do, but it also keeps me up at night. But yes, just being aware that this stuff happens, that people make businesses out of scraping data and using it for whatever their own purposes are, is really important. So we only have 10 minutes and I have like 4 or 5 more slides. I wanted to go through geolocation super quick. And then I wanted to talk a little bit, I picked Facebook as like the application because everybody's familiar with it, of like things we can do to secure that. So let's talk about geolocation, because a lot of people give me flack about this. They just don't understand what the dangers are. So your device has technology in it that is constantly looking, if location services are turned on, it is constantly looking for information from any source that it can to determine where exactly it is. And some applications need it, like if you're using a rideshare application or you're using, maps or something like that, or the weather app. But if we leave these things running in the background, now you are essentially a beacon of where you are at all times. And so there's two different types of location data. There's proximity data, and then there is precision proximity or precision location data. And so sometimes it'll say, like, Snap Map is one that drives me crazy. Kids use this all the time. But in Snapchat, there is a feature called Snap Map, where it basically they click a picture and it drops a pin on a map of exactly where they are. So that is an accurate location determination. On Facebook and on Instagram, there are settings where you can say, find a friend near me. Facebook's using your geolocation settings, and then it's broadcasting that you're at that location. And when I say find a friend, now it shows me all the people that are in my proximity. So I would, if we were all in the same room, I would do that as an exercise where I would have everybody go in, if you have a Facebook account, and click that, and you'll see everybody start popping up. Snapchat's another one. You can find people if their geolocation services are turned on for that application, you can find people. So maybe you don't realize you're sitting in that cafe and somebody in the gym is just clicking on that, and now they know you're sitting right across the street from them. So from a physical security perspective, it is not a good thing to allow your applications to use your location data for any purpose, unless it is ride sharing and using it for driving directions, GPS. Does anybody have any questions about that? Dale's giggling. All right, security check on Facebook. So Facebook and Instagram in particular have a setting called security checkup. And basically what it does, it's not super comprehensive, but at least it's a start. It will go in and check to make sure that your password has been updated recently. So if you haven't changed your password since 2017, when you got your Facebook account, I can almost guarantee you that it's been compromised at some point. Facebook has been compromised. I can't tell you how many times in the last several years. So, and at one point they were selling your data to an organization. So making sure that you change your password periodically. Enabling two-factor authentication, are also known as multi-factor authentication. There are a couple of ways you can do that. You can use an authentication app. Apple has one, Google has one, Google Authenticator. And that actually, in my opinion, is the most secure way to do it. You can also do it through text messaging, but where it sends you a code, but text messaging is clear text. So somebody could essentially intercept that. They can also do it through something called an OTP, which is a one-time password. Those are not bad, but they also can be intercepted as well. And then, of course, you want to enable logon alerts. You want to, in the application, you want the application to let you know if somebody logs onto your account from a different browser or a different IP address. Okay. So Facebook privacy settings, you know where you're sharing information on Facebook. These are the different options you have. So only me, lists, friends, and public. The friends one is a misnomer, because if you share with your friends, Facebook also allows friends of friends. Friends of friends is basically the without creating a list, friends of friends is the most secure you get if you're sharing with friends. So if Dale and I have a common friend, Craig Scott is our common friend, but I'm not friends with Dale, and I post to something and Craig can see it, and and Dale can actually go through Craig's account to see what I posted. So it's not on every single post, but it is definitely friends of friends can see certain things like pictures and things like that. So if somebody is targeting another individual, usually they'll go through a friends list and try to find people that are on that friend. So just be aware of when you're posting things that it's not just the people that you think are, potentially just the people that you think are seeing things. The other thing to remember with social media apps, if you decide to delete your account and I tag David on a picture and David puts it on his timeline and I delete my account, that photograph will stay on David's timeline. So it doesn't get deleted. So even though you think you deleted your Facebook account, if you have shared things on other people's pages or if they've accepted it on their timeline, that will stay there in perpetuity. So just know that when you delete things online, it doesn't necessarily mean that the account is completely deleted. I did want to go a little bit beyond social media accounts. I know I've been talking a lot about social media because those are things that we use the most. And I did kind of talk about, you know, that our digital footprint is bigger than just social media before, but I wanted to talk a little bit about where we're leaking information. So in the previous session, we talked about our browser privacy settings. This is really, really essential. It is unbelievable how much information is shared through browsers from websites to websites about you, your location, your IP address, the type of browser, the time, the things that you're clicking on websites. It's just unbelievable. So making sure that you set your browser privacy settings as strict as you need them to be, or utilize a browser such as DuckDuckGo that minimizes the amount of usage of cookies and metadata. Amazon account settings. Amazon has now got such a breadth of interconnectivity. It's beyond just your shopping habits, right? We've got music, we've got Kindle. So now it's the type of music you like, the type of books that you read, and then we've got all of the Alexa devices and home automation devices that are garnering and gathering information about us. Also, home automation and smart devices are right now one of the biggest threats to individuals in terms of cybersecurity, because most of these devices are not created with security in mind. They're created with ease of use, and they're created with first to market concepts. So if you're using smart devices like thermostats, smart TVs, smart washing machines. I got a new washing machine a couple of months ago, and to get the capacity size washing machine that I wanted, the only option was to get a smart washing machine. I have no smart devices in my house. It's the first smart device I've ever had. I refused to have a smart thermostat. I actually freaked out when ONR created the smart meters, the electric meters, because they could not provide me with documentation of how they're securing that device on my home. So just understand that when you start introducing all of these smart devices into your home, although they are quite convenient, they are also, because they are internet facing, they are introducing vulnerabilities into your home network. So let's tie this into our professional lives. We're working from our home network. We have some sort of smart cameras or smart thermostat. It is compromised. Now we have to worry about the devices connected to that network, which could be your work laptop. So just be mindful of these devices. Make sure you're going into them and setting up whatever security settings that they do have so that people can't gain access to those devices. Does anybody have questions about that? Now that I've completely freaked everyone out, I want to give you just a few takeaways. Actionable things that we can do to try to start minimizing some of our exposure online. First and foremost, take an inventory of all your social media accounts. Sometimes we have accounts that we don't use anymore. If you're not engaged actively on your particular account, then you should just, delete the account. If you are engaged in a social media account and you want to have a public facing account, my suggestion is that you create 2 accounts. One public facing that shares the particular things that you want to share. Another one would be completely locked down and private. And therefore only your immediate circle of people can see that information. And that way, at least you're minimizing the personal information that's out there about you online. Take steps to optimize privacy settings on your accounts and also your devices. So making sure that your phone applications, when you install new apps, that you don't just give them full access to your contacts list. Don't give them full access to your phone, to your camera, to your microphone, to your location data. Only limit it to when the app is in use, if it even needs it. Obviously, we want to limit what we share online. That's hard for all of us. It's hard for me. I am an extremely social, outgoing person. I love to share fun and exciting things. So just try to be mindful of that. Evaluate the smart devices you use in your daily life on your person, such as your Fitbit and other, personal devices, and also in your home, making sure that the devices that you choose to purchase also employ the basic cybersecurity standards that will protect your information and protect your home network. And finally, spread the word. I think that education is the only way that we're going to mitigate a lot of these threats. Having conversations with people in your circle, within your library, within the schools that are in the purview of your library, on what are the ways that we can do better to help protect the library and also protect the patrons and the people that use your services. So this is the end of my presentation. This is my contact information. If you need any further support individually within your library, for example, on doing some of these things that we were talking about, or even educating individuals or creating individual training within your libraries, please let me know. It is definitely my mission to continue to educate people, and I'm here as a resource. So I open it up for any further questions. I know we went a little bit over, but if anybody has any questions or wants to talk about any particular topics, I do have some time to stay after. If not, then you are all free to go.
Well, thank you so much, Antoinette. This was just absolutely horrific and fantastic.
Sorry.
No, I'm sitting here, I'm like, okay, we've got a smart device on the first floor. Oh my God. Well, and like I said at the beginning, I didn't turn off my Bluetooth when I got out of the car today. So that's what I did during this presentation. So thank you so much. I'm going to send out a follow-up email with the links that Antoinette had provided. Now, there was a question regarding the slides. Those would be available. I'm going to let you respond to that. To my knowledge, the answer is no, but do you have any remarks upon that?
This slide is my intellectual property, but the RCLS has access to this presentation recorded. I have no problem sharing the deck. If somebody wants the information, by all means, just ask that if you are going to reuse any of the information that you just credit my company.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. So with that, I'm going to stop the recording.